All right, let's dive into another deep dive. Today we're looking at DCM Shriram Ltd,
Mm.
a pretty big player in India.
Yeah, definitely a familiar name.
So we've got their financials, standalones,
Right?
consolidated, auditor reports, stock exchange disclosures, all that good stuff.
Get beyond just the headlines.
Yeah, get a sense of what's really
Like,
happening.
exactly. Like, what's the heartbeat of the company?
The pulse, yeah.
And one of the first things that jumped out at me, when I was going through all this was the dividend announcement.
Oh, okay.
They declared a second interim dividend, 3.60 rupees per share, which brings the total for the year so far up to 5.60 per share.
That's substantial, isn't it? What do you think that kind of signals to investors?
I think it signals that they're feeling pretty good about how things are going.
Right?
They're confident about earnings.
Mm-hmm.
Companies don't usually increase dividends unless they think they can at least maintain that level
Yeah, makes sense.
or even do better. So that's a good sign, especially for investors who are looking for that income.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those regular payouts, yeah.
And it's not just the dividend, right? I mean, when you look at their debt to equity ratio, it's super low.
Oh, yeah, it's remarkably low.
0.14, something like that.
Yeah, 0.14, that's really healthy. And their interest coverage ratios are looking pretty good, too.
So financially, they seem to be in a pretty strong position.
Oh, very strong.
Yeah, what's that tell you? What does that say to you as someone who looks at these numbers all the time?
Well, it tells me that they're not relying on a lot of borrowed money.
Mm-hmm.
They're using more of their own funds, which means less risk,
Right, less risk.
more stability, and that's something investors like to see.
So less debt, less pressure.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's get into the specifics, the nitty-gritty of their performance.
Okay, let's do it.
How do the numbers look compared to last year, like current quarter, 9 months?
Well, we see revenue growth in both the current quarter and the 9-month period, which is great.
Okay.
But there have been some shifts in profitability. Now, you got to remember, DCM Shriram works in a lot of different segments,
Right.
and some of these are seasonal.
Like sugar, right.
Exactly.
The sugar business.
Sugar's tied to the crushing season, so those quarterly numbers,
Yeah.
they're going to fluctuate a bit depending on when that cycle is.
Right. Gonna keep those seasonal things in mind.
Always.
Okay, so we've got revenue growth, but you mentioned some changes in profitability.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that a little?
Sure. Let's look at their EBITDA. Earnings
Okay.
before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Right.
It's a good way to see how profitable the core operations are
Yeah.
before all those other things.
Okay.
And for DCM Shriram, their EBITDA has been trending upward.
So they're getting better at squeezing profit out of their core business.
Yes, they're becoming more efficient, which
Mhm.
again, investors like to see that.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not just growth, it's
Right.
growth with good management.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, now this next thing really caught my eye.
What was that?
They're expanding their sugar plant at the Loney unit,
Oh, right. Yeah,
significantly increasing their cane crushing capacity.
big move.
It seems like they're doubling down on that core business, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It shows they're confident about the future of sugar.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just happy to maintain where they are, they want to grow even more.
Right.
And what's interesting is they're doing all this while keeping that debt low.
Yeah, they're being smart about it.
Smart, strategic.
Now, there's another development that I found even more interesting.
Yeah.
They've gotten in-principle approval to invest in hardware manufacturing.
Hardware, wow.
Yeah, potentially acquiring an entity or some assets related to their Fenesta building systems.
So Fenesta, they do windows and doors.
Right.
So this could be a way for them to get into the hardware that goes along with those.
Yeah, create more of a whole ecosystem.
Exactly, an ecosystem.
Yeah, around their existing offerings.
Darn move.
Instead of just windows and doors, they could be offering hinges, handles, locks, even.
Oh, and the smart home stuff.
Yeah, smart home solutions, that's huge right now.
It's a booming market,
Exactly.
especially in India.
So they're going from this kind of traditional industrial player to
To a tech innovator.
yeah, it's a really interesting shift.
Yeah, definitely a forward-looking move.
And to fund all of this, they've gotten board approval to raise money through these non-convertible debentures, potentially up to
A lot of money.
1,000 crore rupees.
That's a statement.
Yeah, it's a serious chunk of change.
It shows they're really serious about this.
Yeah, they're putting their money where their mouth is.
Absolutely. Not just talking about it, they're making it happen.
And speaking of, making things happen, let's talk about their leadership and their governance.
Okay, yeah.
They just appointed a new independent director, Mr. Tejpreet Singh Chopra.
I read about that, yeah.
Over 22 years of experience, global management, finance, was even the CEO of GE in India.
GE, wow.
Yeah, so bringing someone like that on board, what do you think that says?
It says they're serious about getting this hardware business right.
Mm-hmm.
GE is known for manufacturing.
Right.
So his expertise there, that's got to be invaluable.
Like they're building a dream team.
Yeah, a dream team, exactly.
Yeah, it's a good sign, definitely. Now, there have been a few other changes too, right? Like the company secretary and compliance officer.
Right, and some new key managerial personnel.
Yeah, so it seems like they're...
But making sure everything runs smoothly.
Yeah, all the pieces are in place.
Yeah, and that they're in compliance, with regulations.
Right, dotting the I's and crossing the T's.
Exactly.
And speaking of keeping things in order, they've also amended their code of practices and procedures for fair disclosure of unpublished price-sensitive information.
A long title.
Yeah, it is a long title.
But an important one.
Yeah, what do you make of that?
Well, it shows they're committed to transparency and ethical behavior, which is super important for building trust.
Right. With investors, with the public.
With everyone, yeah. They're playing by the rules, basically.
Yeah, they're showing that they're committed to good governance.
Good governance, exactly.
So they've got strong financials, they're making these strategic investments, they're committed to good governance. It's
impressive.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. But out of all this, what's the most significant takeaway for you?
What really grabs my attention is this move into hardware manufacturing, especially the smart home part.
Yeah.
This could really change things, not just for DCM Shriram, but for the whole competitive landscape.
It's a bold move.
Bold, yeah, and potentially a sign of a big shift in their overall strategy.
Okay, so for our listener, let's leave them with something to think about.
Okay.
How do you think this move into hardware, especially the smart home stuff, will affect their competitors? What kind of ripple effects might we see? That's a good question to ponder.
Yeah, something to consider as we continue our deep dive into DCM Shriram.
Definitely. It's a whole new industry, really.
Right. It's like they're saying, hey, we're not content with just,
Yeah.
sitting back and doing what we've always done.
Yeah, exactly. Got to keep pushing forward.
And they've got the resources to do it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That 1,000 crore they're raising, that's a lot of firepower.
Yeah, it's a statement.
And let's not forget about Mr. Chopra.
Oh, right, the new board member.
Yeah, his experience at GE.
Yeah, he knows manufacturing.
Could be a huge asset as they move into this hardware space.
It's like they're assembling the perfect team.
Yeah, a dream team.
So what do you think their strategy is going to be here?
Well, they've said they're looking at acquiring an existing company or buying some assets related to their Finesta building systems.
Finesta, the windows and doors.
Yeah, so it makes sense that they'd expand into the hardware that goes with those.
That's a good point, yeah. Leverage those existing relationships. The customer base, the distribution network.
Exactly. It's already there.
They could offer a complete building solution.
Yeah, from the windows and doors to the
hinges, the handles,
the lock,
the whole 9 yards.
Even smart home integration.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
The potential there is massive.
Especially in India.
Oh, yeah. That market is ready to explode.
DCM Shriram, a leader in smart homes. Who would have thought?
Right. It's pretty amazing transformation when you think about it.
Yeah, from traditional industry to cutting edge.
But it's also a very competitive market.
True.
They're not going to be the only ones trying to get a piece of that pie.
So for our listener who might be thinking, okay, this is all interesting, but what's the point? Why should I care?
Good question.
What are the key takeaways here?
Well, first of all, I think we see a company that's doing really well. Strong financials, smart investments. They're not just surviving, they're thriving.
And they seem committed to doing things the right way, ethically.
Right. Transparency, good governance, that's all there.
Yeah, so that's a big plus.
And then there's this move into hardware, especially the smart home part.
Yeah, that's the game changer.
It shows they're willing to change, to adapt.
Innovate.
Exactly. And that's crucial in today's world.
So they're going from this old school industrial company to
a tech-focused, future-oriented company.
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable evolution.
And then there's the new board member, Mr. Chopra.
Right.
His experience, his leadership.
Shows they're serious about making this work.
Yeah, they're not just dipping their toes in the water, they're diving in head first.
So it's not just about understanding their financials.
It's about understanding their vision.
Yeah, where they're going, how they're going to get there.
And who they're bringing along for the ride.
DCM Shriram, a company in transition.
A company with a story to tell.
Yeah. What I find particularly interesting is how this move into hardware is going to affect the competition.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be interesting to watch.
It's a very competitive landscape out there.
Fiercely competitive.
So how do you see this playing out?
Well, I think you're going to see existing players start to feel the heat,
Mm-hmm.
especially those who haven't been innovating, you know.
Right, the ones who've been resting on their laurels,
If you're
suddenly
gonna-
they've got this new player
A lot of resources.
from a strong brand reputation.
They're going to have to step up their game.
Yeah, adapt or die, right?
Pretty much.
And who benefits from all this competition?
The consumers, ultimately.
Right, better products, lower prices.
More innovation, more choices.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, competition is good.
It's a reminder that you can't just stand still in business.
You got to keep moving, keep evolving.
DCM Shriram gets it.
They're not just adapting, they're shaping the future.
So for our listener, this is a great example of how
Companies can reinvent themselves
they can seize new opportunities.
and how they can stay ahead of the curve.
DCM Shriram, a company worth watching.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's bigger than just the bottom line.
Right, there's a human side to all this.
Absolutely. These decisions affect real people.
People's jobs, the economy of the whole region,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even prices for consumers, you know?
It's a ripple effect.
Exactly.
And it's not just the immediate impact, right? Think long term.
Oh, yeah, long term.
The Indian economy as a whole.
Right.
If DCM Shriram succeeds, it could inspire other companies
To take risks.
to diversify, to invest.
Yeah, to push the boundaries.
It could really boost the entire manufacturing sector.
A rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Exactly.
It's exciting to think about.
But it also brings up some important questions.
Yeah, like how do they make sure everyone benefits?
Not just the shareholders.
Right, how do they handle the risks?
Because entering a new market, it's not always easy.
Not at all. There are challenges.
So it's not enough to just be successful financially.
No, they need to be responsible.
Sustainability, ethical sourcing, treating workers fairly.
Engaging with the community.
It's about doing well by doing good.
That's what it comes down to. And investors are looking for that.
More and more.
Companies that care about those things, they're the ones that last.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, DCM Shriram, it's a company at a crossroads.
Yeah, a pivotal
They're
moment.
making big moves, taking chances.
They're reinventing themselves, really.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens next.
I'll be watching for sure.
And for our listener, I encourage you to keep an eye on them too.
Follow their journey,
Their successes, their setbacks,
the impact they have.
because it's a story that reflects the whole Indian business landscape,
A landscape that's constantly changing,
full of surprises, full of opportunities.
full of stories just waiting to be told.
So stay curious, stay engaged.
You never know, maybe you'll uncover the next big story.
That's what it's all about.
Exploration, discovery.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll be back soon with another fascinating company.
Another deep dive.
Until then, keep exploring.